Good evening, Amos.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well.
Yeah, I'm speaking through this one.
You got new, you sound good.
Okay, good. So today will be short, actually.
I think so. We're gonna have to keep things moving with,
Do not have sound.
Bob
Huh.
needing to cut out at 8:30.
I don't have sound.
You have no sound? We can hear
Hmm.
you.
I do not have any sound.
We can hear you. Why don't you log out and try logging in again? Yep, bye. Let's see.
My speaker's on. I still can't hear.
So no one was talking.
Speakers.
Can you hear me, Suzanne?
I still can't hear,
Okay, well, we can hear you, so you need to mute yourself.
but I can't hear a thing. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Wait a minute. So Suzanne, can you hear me now?
I can't hear, I couldn't hear the other day, my speaker on YouTube, I can't hear it on the meetings on that, I can't get my speaker. It didn't work yesterday, like a different day, remember I told you, but I figured it out.
There's Bob.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. Sorry, Bob, we're having some technical difficulties with Suzanne's audio.
No problem. Are we
That's
waiting for Deb too?
Yes, that is who, up there's Deb now. Yeah, so we'll move. So the first order of business for the board will be to vote a vice chair or a temporary chair for tonight's meeting. As Peter is not here and he is the vice chair and normally would stand in for Greg.
I'll vote for, or I'll nominate Deb for the position. She's handled it so well in the past.
Deb, can you hear us?
You see, it doesn't show microphone. She might not be a panelist. Can you check?
No, she is. She wouldn't be in the, can you see her? She wouldn't be in
Can you
the,
guys can't hear me, right? Because it
We
looks
can
like I'm
now.
on mute.
we
You
can,
can hear me?
yes, we can
Yeah,
now.
we cannot see you.
Sorry about that. Actually, I was on my way home from a meeting and there was an accident. And so I'm about 5 minutes away from my house. So I'm probably not able to act as a chair if I have to read anything, but otherwise, that's fine if unless somebody else wants to do it.
Well, one of the other one of the other members could also read the hearing notice, which will be for Cedino Estates. Yeah.
It might just be a little bit easier actually if yes, if one of the other members would like to do it, or at least do it until I'm settled. So
That's fine.
I
I don't have any of the, I mean, if I'm happy to do it, I just don't have any of the hearing notices. I don't believe, unless they were in the packet.
They should be in the packet and there should just be one because there's only one new hearing.
So do we will
Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to nominate Bob to act as chair tonight.
Is there a second? Bob, you can second it.
I can. Okay. I guess I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Deb Balsaric, aye.
Stetson, I.
And, aye,
All right. Stephanie, where is the,
Oh, we
where's the
don't,
notice that we usually read to get the meeting started?
it's on the second page. It is, yeah. Where it says remote meeting procedures. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, if you don't mind, for some
Yeah.
reason, the second page of mine, it talks about the Zoom instructions, but not that language with the
Oh.
act that Greg
Oh.
usually reads.
It has been modified because we're not, it does say in keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you need to use the link that's in the agenda, www.zoom.us. And you should be able to join in if you click on that link in the agenda. It goes right to the meeting. While conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the members or commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, participants will join the webinar as attendees, which means they're muted and there's no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found under participants from Zoom, or make a request with the Q&A function. And people who are calling in can press *9, and that will indicate that you've raised your hand. Anyone wishing to display materials can make the request of the chair and email the materials to the board staff for sharing on screen. And there are some other. I think that's pretty much the critical information for the participants.
Thank you, Stephanie. I guess to do a roll call, we'll start with Amos Kedem
here,
and Deborah Balsaric,
Here.
and Robert Stetson is here as well. So it looks like the first item we have on the agenda is a continued site plan review, 661 Washington Street. It looks like there's a request for a continuance, or is that a continued hearing from the prior meeting, Stephanie?
No, they submitted a continuance today. There is still some outstanding items on the stormwater review, and there'll be some plan revisions. So they want the time to get that completed.
Okay.
They're asking.
The request identified today's date as the requested continuance date. Do we have a preferred date from them?
We do, the 23rd.
22nd.
22nd?
Thank you, the 22nd.
Okay.
motion to
I'll accept the motion.
motion to continue 661 Washington Street SPR 22-295 by Allgreen Engineering to the 22nd.
I'll second it. Balsaric.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Motion to continue. Kedem,
Aye,
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is an aye as well. All right, the next item on the agenda is the continued site plan review for 95 Belmont Street. We have anyone presenting?
Yes.
Bob, do you have the correct?
now there is a request to
Binder
continue
open.
on the 5/22nd.
because 95 Belmont was last week's, last
Sorry,
meeting date.
I might have the wrong one up.
There's a motion to continue this one. Okay,
Apologies here. Ah, here it is. Okay. So we are on a request to continue on 518 Washington Street, excuse me. This is the Congregation of Holy Cross, and they are looking to continue to the next meeting on May 22nd. Do I have a motion?
motion to continue 518 Washington Street SPR, SPR 23-295 to the 22nd of the month.
Do I have a second, Deb?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Motion to continue, Kedem,
Hi,
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is an aye as well. All right, the next agenda item is the public hearing on 366 Center Street, Sedno Estates, definitive subdivision, Pilling Engineer. And I will read the notice of public hearing in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 41, Section 81T, Mass General Laws. The Easton Planning and Zoning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. to be held remotely on the application received from Pilling Engineering Group for a definitive subdivision for the creation of a two-lot subdivision at 366 Center Street, to be known as Sedno Estates Definitive Subdivision. This meeting will be conducted remotely via Zoom. The virtual meeting link will be contained within the posted agenda at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. A copy of the application and plan may be viewed on the town website. This notice is also available at the website specified. All right. Do we have everyone that will be presenting?
As far as I know.
Do we just have someone else join as well, Stephanie?
Yes, this is, hold on, it is James McGaldy.
Okay. The floor is yours. Just introduce yourselves and for the record.
Good evening, Todd Pilling from Pilling Land Surveying. I'm the engineer that did the design.
Thank you.
I'm James McGaldy, and I live at 32 Lantern Lane,
That would
One
be
of-
the,
direct abutters.
yeah, the direct abutter to the east, which would be off the end of Sedano Way.
I'm
And that'll
sorry,
all come-
is Mr. McGaldy with the project proponent, Todd?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McGaldy, I am going to, I'm going to put you on hold, or you can go back into the or just ask you to mute while the applicant is doing his presentation. Is there anyone else, Todd, with you?
no, I don't think so.
Okay,
Unless the owner's here, but I don't know if he said he was coming or not.
Okay, well, the floor is yours, Mr. Pilling.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is a two-lot subdivision located off of Center Street, pretty much across from like Meeting House Lane and down in that part of Center Street, kind of in the middle. One of the lots, Lot A, there's an existing home on it, number 366 Center Street. We're proposing to build this new street, which I call it Sedano, but I think you pronounced it a little differently. I don't quite know the proper pronunciation. But that's going to be to the south of the existing home to access Lot B in the back. Both lots have just over an acre of land. Sedano Way, the land all pitches to the east away from Center Street. So we modeled the road to do the same thing. So it's pitched away from Center Street into a detention basin at the end of the road. You'll see on the plans that we have a house and a driveway. Should I be sharing my screen, or is that something that,
Yes, you should.
That would be helpful.
okay. Let's see. Okay, how's that? All right, so the road pitches away. We have a drainage basin down in the back. We show an existing home, the driveway, the septic system is going to be in the front yard. We have a 25-foot easement for extension of the street, which obviously Mr. Bagaldi can weigh in on. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We have a grass swale down the side of Sedano Way, so we're not using any curbing, very low impact. We do show a couple street trees in here on either side. I know the review comment letter has a question about whether or not we should be doing a hammerhead or a circular turnaround. I did notice that I did forget to submit or upload the environmental impact statement. I did prepare one. I just forgot to upload it, but we can provide those documents. And there was also a question about where the proposed tree line is going to be out here. And that is not shown here. And yes, it is important to us that we leave a buffer to the neighbors, so we can most certainly add that onto the plan set. But otherwise, it's a pretty simple access for one lot. Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie, do you have any comments?
Let's see. So I was looking at the waivers, and although they do show the 25-foot easement, the waiver indicated they were seeking a waiver of the requirement that a 30-foot right-of-way easement be provided. So Todd, I took that as meaning, or Mr. Chair, I took that as meaning that they were requesting a waiver of the easement entirely, but that's not the case.
No, so the 30-foot easement is for extension of the roadway. The 25-foot easement is for utilities. So
Okay.
it would still be there for utilities in the future, but I don't, based on what's there, I don't foresee this road ever being extended, but obviously the neighbor is here and he can weigh in, but that's why we left the 25-foot.
Right, and that was my thought, that you have two adjacent, they're adjacent to each other. So you have this lot that's owned by Mr. Magaldi, and then directly adjacent to that is another lot. They are landlocked, and it appeared they are undeveloped currently. And if this road could be extended in the future to provide access to those lots for future development. So
we have no objection to making it a 30-foot easement, and we could do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So let's see. And that was my primary. Again, Todd mentioned the limit of clearing. They'll show that on the plane, the hammerhead. And again, that's kind of a question for the board. I would like the board to discuss that, maybe to provide even guidance in the future, whether they feel that a shape like this would meet the frontage requirements. Mr. Pilling mentioned that they're willing to make it a turnaround so that you have the curved frontage.
Well, I didn't say I was willing to do it.
Oh,
I
I'm
just asked
sorry.
the question. So the way Easton's rules are written, it says it have to be like a 30-foot curb radius, which isn't enough for a fire truck to turn around in. So the hammerhead provision is much easier for a fire truck to turn around in. Because if we had to do a cul-de-sac, I would ask for a waiver from the Easton requirement for 30 feet to make it something that a fire truck could turn around in. But obviously we would talk to the fire department about that before we did anything. But I'd
Right.
rather leave it at the hammerhead. It's a lot less asphalt. It's much simpler for one house. If this was more than one house, it would be a different discussion, but this is effectively a driveway to this house.
Right, and in looking at it and doing some measurements, it was clear that a fire truck could pull in and back out of that. So again, I think the board should discuss the question of the easement. I'm sorry, the frontage on the property. And Todd mentioned that they do have an environmental impact report that they will provide. He talked about the stormwater, which, you know, that was my conclusion. It's very clear that that's how they're directing stormwater from the site to that basin and through the swale. So those are my only comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Members of the board?
What is the actual street address of the existing home?
366 Center.
Okay. Thank you.
Thomas?
Nothing.
All right. I think at
So-
this, oh, go ahead, Deb.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just going to clarify or get clarification on what Stephanie was saying. So in terms of the frontage, so lot A obviously has the frontage, and so lot B is getting the required frontage just through the radius of the access point, or could you reiterate or Stephanie speak to that again?
Yeah, so I'm
Or
going to
Todd,
outline.
yeah.
This is the frontage right here.
She's on the phone. She can't see it, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the way.
No, I can actually see it now. No, I have,
Okay.
I'm at my computer, yeah.
All right,
The
so.
blue, yep, I see it.
So, and again, the way the definition of frontage is written, I just want to find it again so I have it. It says the uninterrupted contiguous linear or curvilinear distance measured along a front line lot between each side lot line where it is collinear with the right of way of an abutting street or way. On lots abutting curved streets or cul-de-sacs, the arc length between the side lot lines will be considered the frontage. So the question is, and I mean, the intent clearly with the hammerhead is, as Mr. Pilling pointed out, to provide easy turnaround for fire apparatus. You have an arc, and then you have it takes a right turn, the lot line there, and then takes another right turn into a curve. Where it takes that right angle, is that considered an interruption or is it uninterrupted? I mean, I think the case can be made that it's an uninterrupted line. It's not creating a side lot line or intended to be creating a side lot line or a rear lot line.
So if
Are
I
you
may,
referring to the, oh, sorry. Are you referring to Stephanie, that would be like power left? I think that might be field. That's just.
Yeah, so I think the purpose of the uninterrupted contiguous linear or curvilinear distance and the way it's described and defined in the subdivision rules and regs, or I'm sorry, in the bylaw, is to prevent creating frontage by having frontage that might break. So for example, you might have a lot line that comes up like this and then goes something like this and then down and, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example. We've had
Well, I mean,
interesting
that's
lot
the
shapes
example,
like
that's
that.
the example we're seeing.
I know, it's that's not. I didn't go to seek additional, but where you, yeah.
I mean, it seems kind of like a stub. I mean, have we ever seen anything like this count as satisfying the frontage requirement?
I know that there's other lots in town that have a very similar to this, but I'm not sure under what, you know, if it was the same exact permitting or
We need-
approvals that were requested.
I mean, you know, and I'm kind of, you know, I'm interested in Mr. Pilling. So if you were to do a cul-de-sac here, and I kind of take your point, that you could have done that. I guess, how would that impact the engineering of a lot? I mean, what would it look like?
So based on what I'm hearing, what I would probably do is I would change this to the, I don't know how well I can draw on here, but to show a circular turnaround for property line, but leave the hammerhead pavement just as it is for access to the house. But you'd have a circular end of the cul-de-sac instead of a hammerhead. If I'm making it clear, so I'm only changing the property line to be the circle, but I would leave the pavement as a hammer.
But you leave the pavement. I mean, I think I see what you're saying, and I'm not sure that anyone has expressed a definitive opinion on the way it's, you know, put together right now. I think it's more of a question, because if it's form over substance, I don't want to go, you know, too far down into it, but the way that it's shaped right now, it does sort of, it kind of appears a little bit odd in the sense that you've got a stub there. You know, is that just a way of kind of, I think the thing we're sensitive about is probably if that's going to set a precedent whereby this could be done in the future, if you can follow me.
Well, this is one of the three choices for how to designate a street in the subdivision regulations. And like you say, what you have in the regs right now is a turnaround that the fire department can't turn around in. So this makes more sense from a fire department perspective. But again, I'm open to changing it to a circle. It really has no bearing on the rest of the design. It's not going to change the amount of pavement for the drainage. It's not going to change the tree line to the neighbors.
So, Bob, I'm going to attempt this again. The situation that I believe the bylaw was updated for the contiguous length of frontage would be in the instance, and we saw this, I believe the parcels at Summer Street, some of them had this, where you have a lot that has frontage along, say, Cedino Way. Let's say this was a constructed way, and then it's designed to go up and around another lot and then come back down here. And where on Summer Street, at least one of these lot lines met the 150-foot minimum requirement. But in the past, before that contiguous line was added as a condition, there were some lots that were created where the frontage was determined by adding two shorter lengths along the roadway together to get the 150. And that's not what's happening here. That's not what Mr. Pilling is trying to attempt here.
No, and I'd say the same thing about the contiguous upland, you know, but years ago it was as long as you had the upland and you had 20,000 here and 20,000 there, you had your 40,000, but then you changed it to contiguous. So it had to be all together to make one area of 40,000. Same thing with the frontage, but you're right. That's not what's happening here. It's not the uninterrupted question. It's the fact that it's got the 90-degree angles in it. Does that take away from frontage?
So,
Right.
Can I ask a question? So a continuous line, and obviously a straight line is the simplest way, but a cul-de-sac, we count part of the circle as a frontage. In this case, instead of a circle, we have this shape. But what is the difference? What's the problem? If it is not a circle and it is a hammerhead, but isn't that actually serve the same purpose?
I believe it does from the access and the turnaround. It's the question, I guess, for the zoning enforcement officer and whether or not he's going to count all this as frontage.
Yeah, my question is it a variance because we don't have a circle or a straight line? That's basically what I'm saying.
I say that your subdivision regulations allow this type of dead end on a street. It's one of the three choices, so.
So subdivision specifically allow hammerhead. Can you recall, Stephanie?
Yes,
Yes. So
I'm
we
just,
are.
yeah, I'm,
Yeah, I
let's
could try and
double
find
check
it.
that. We should be okay then.
Well, we're gonna probably be continuing tonight anyway, so we can revise the plans and such so that we could get everything addressed, the environmental impact statement and all the rest of it. So we can get our answer between now and then or whatever, but it'd be nice to have it tonight too, but if it's a question for the zoning enforcement officer, then we may have to wait.
What would be the
Well,
drawback to just
Mr.
having
Mr.
cul-de-sac?
Mr. Pilling, I have a question. If you are going to do something else, what happened with the infiltration basin you have there?
Well, like I say, what I would probably do is do a circle that would go like this, because the 30-foot radius is only 60 feet, so it's actually smaller than what you would see here. It would like literally fit like right here, so it would be smaller than what you're seeing. And I would leave the pavement right where it is and the drainage basin right where it is, so none of that would change. You would just have a different circle property line that would go like this.
What
If-
is your preference? The hammerhead?
Well, it's my preference because obviously I don't see the need for, I mean, this is cleaner for a fire department and vehicles turning around, they're turning around in the way as opposed to on private property. I understand it's a private way, but I'd rather keep street traffic to the street and driveway traffic to the driveway.
Do we have that in writing from the fire department?
I don't think they weighed in on this yet. I didn't see anything.
Okay,
well, they didn't, I think they,
maybe that's something we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what the fire department has to say about this as well.
I'm just checking because you had no adverse comments, and I think the fire department did weigh in and approved him, probably based on the hammerhead. So let me just look this up.
So while she's looking, I'll answer the question in the chat. Somebody asked if that existing home at number 366 is going to be demolished and a new home built, or if we're just going to leave the house. The answer is that we're going to keep that house and the pool and the driveway. It's all staying. This is just a property line to create the second lot. Did I buy you enough time?
Yes, the fire department did not comment.
Well, before
So
next time,
Stephanie,
I'd like
Yeah,
to
we can,
hear their
I can
comments.
reach out and,
I was just gonna say, I recall, and I'm trying to remember if it was Deborah Lee Lane or
Yes.
which project it was.
yes.
The one, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Where they did a similar thing, the road layout had the cul-de-sac, but rather than what they were doing was extending the road from the existing cul-de-sac. They were building two adjacent lots that were undeveloped. And they wanted to extend the road, but needed frontage, so they retained the layout of the cul-de-sac and just extended the road. So you didn't have to, as again, Todd pointed out, just throw a bunch of asphalt down to satisfy the frontage requirement.
And Todd, where the road is going to, or where the access for the lot B is going to be, is that there would be some tree clearing that's adjacent to the existing house that's remaining? Is that right?
Yes. Yes. That full width of the roadway would get cleared, so we can put the grass swale on the south side, the underground utilities on the north side, plus the 20 feet of asphalt.
Mr. Pilling, I look at the picture from the street view, and I see power lines going there. Is a facility of power going to that entrance today?
Let's see. So,
Yeah, right there.
yeah, hold on, I think it
If you
might
look
show up
from the
here.
street there,
It shows
that
up here
power
better.
line-
So yeah, the underground utilities are going to come into probably some kind of transformer because it's over 300 feet to the house, and then the electricity will come in off of that.
Okay.
Stephanie, looking at these waivers, what is the reference to 501-26, the waiver for the 42-foot bounds?
So the bounds are, that is the depth, right?
42 inches, yes.
So we've.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I said feet.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Excuse
I'm
me.
not setting a 42-foot bound.
The board has heard this before, and I can't remember what project it was, but what the board had been told is that the requirement is of the town is 42-inch bound, so a 42-inch in depth bound. These are the stone markers that mark the boundaries of the property.
Concrete.
Yes, and what we've been told is that the local manufacturer's standard is 36 inches. And that it's quite a bit more for the 40 feet. And what is the frost? I mean, does it relevant to the frost line, Todd, going down deeper?
No, it's just usually to dig the holes, you use post hole diggers and a shovel. And once you start getting down too deep, using post hole diggers becomes really difficult too. And obviously, the further down you go, the more likely you're going to hit a stone and all the rest of it. And you really don't want to dig these out with a backhoe because then you'll end up with like a bigger hole that'll settle and move the bound. So you like to keep the hole tight, and it makes it easier for keeping the bound where it is, as somebody who's set thousands of bounds. But yeah, it's more the fact that you can't buy a 42-inch bound at anybody around here. They're all 36 inches.
Any other questions for Mr. Pilling? All right, at this point, I'd open it up to the public. I know we have Mr. McGaldy here. Maybe we can start with him.
Okay, let me,
Can you hear me?
We can. Just please introduce yourself and your address.
My name is James McGaldy, and I live at 32 Lantern Lane here in southeastern Massachusetts. I moved here in 1971. So I've been living in this house since 1971. And as a result of living all these years, in the very beginning, when we moved to 32 Lantern Lane, we had what I would consider a small lake of water, which would accumulate in my backyard at the corner of our land and where the proposed house is to be built. And that water was at least 3 to 4 feet deep and maybe 100 feet wide, and it would last for months before it would finally disappear. As a result of that, my father, who has long since passed away, but was chairman of the state planning boards, spoke with, I believe, a Mr. McAdam from Easton, and the Easton Planning Board came out and looked at the situation. And as a result of that, they put drains, storm drains in the street. And the storm drain on it's New England Telephone Telegraph pole number 3 at the front of our house to the left was put in, and I had dug a trench along that line, my lot line, to try and drain that pond. And it just wasn't, the elevation was not right, and I couldn't drain the pond. So as a result of that, I hired Benson Enterprises, and I believe they're in Easton as well, to run a drain line from the bottom of where that pond forms out to the new storm sewer. And as a result of that, we have not had that huge pond anymore. But whenever there's heavy rains, you can always see almost like a little river that trickles from the lot where they're proposing to build this house under those stone rocks and into my area, and eventually it'll form like a small puddle, but it'll eventually subside. But without that drain, I would be having a huge amount of water. That, in fact, we almost lost our son. He was like 2 years old, and a lot of the trees had stone rocks around them in loops to protect them from getting filled in with sand, but they filled up with water. And my son fell in one of those holes. Thank God we saw him in time to catch him. So my concern is that even though the plan shows everything is upland and not water problems, I believe there are water problems and they need to really be assessed and looked at. I am not smart enough to understand the 69 pages of the 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100-year flood write-up that was put in. I've gone through it and I just can't make sense of it. But my concern is absolutely the drainage. And I don't believe that that is all upland. And that's my major concern about this new proposed development. And I'm also concerned with, you know, the different ways that they try to do the frontage to get to that 150 feet. I think that's a concern as well. But I see he just put up a pre-post development discharge rates. I have no idea what any of that is. If he's trying to explain that to me, cubic foot per second, a cubic foot, I just don't understand any of that, and there's a whole lot to go. But that's my major concern, that putting a house in that, subdividing that into 2 house lots so that you can build a new house back there. I don't believe that the soil, the groundage, the ledge, everything that's back there is conducive, and I'm definitely against the plan to create this subdivision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McGaldy. Mr. Pilling, I think he pointed out that you're showing some parts of your report. Perhaps you could respond to Mr. McGaldy's concerns.
Sure, I'll be brief. So what we do is these are storm events. Each one has a different volume of rain. So the 100-year event is a 7-inch rainstorm. The 10-year event is a 3.4-inch rainstorm. These are storms across 24 hours. We looked at them pre-development. Right now, with it being woods, with the existing house and driveway and pool and all that, and we look at how much water is running towards Mr. McGaldy's property. We then put in the house and the driveway, routed all that water through the drainage basin, because obviously we had to slow it down, otherwise the water would be an increase in runoff onto his property. So that drainage basin allows the water to go into the ground. So you'll see we have slight reductions. So for the 2-year storm, the rate is less. Now, I'm not going to necessarily get into what it means to be 0.12 CFS or any of that kind of stuff, but we're charged with being less. I will say that in all the test pits we did out there, the soils were decent. And they were not spectacular, but they were decent. We did not hit ledge in any of our test pits. I did look over the property line in the back because obviously it's a concern of ours to be out of the 100-foot wetland buffer, or we have to file with the conservation. I did not see evidence of a pond, but if this pond was there 50 years ago, the evidence would be gone at this point in time. I don't know if the town has had anybody go out to take a look at it, but I also didn't see evidence of like a major trench or anything like that out there. But they say we're doing our best to reduce things out there. Obviously, we're going to add in the tree line to it to try and get that to make it better. But I'm not sure if I'm explaining it well enough for you to understand. Obviously, we can spend a lot more time on drainage, but I'm not trying to bore anybody either.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Can you
McGaldy.
Yes, can you hear me?
Sure, we'll give you the last
That's
word
right.
on it.
There's a 4-inch, I forget what you call those pipes, but the 4-inch black pipe, there's a 4-inch black pipe that drains that area from the low point in my backyard. And that's been installed by Benson of close to 50 years ago. And I put a lot of rocks over the end of that to protect it and also to allow the water to seep through those rocks to get into the pipe to eventually go out. And that's been there for almost 50 years now.
So he's
And
referring
it's
to,
still there.
it's called Orangeburg pipe. I'm not doubting that it is there or not there. I couldn't see evidence of it. Obviously that drain pipe must go out into Lantern Lane to some extent. And if there was a pond there and it's not there anymore, it's doing its job. But I don't know if the board would like me to do anything about trying to find that pipe, but I think at this point we'd have to do some excavation on Mr. McGaldy's property to find the end of it. And I don't think that's necessarily the best idea.
Well, Mr. McGaldy, are you suggesting that the location of any of this construction would interfere with the pipe? Based on your memory?
Not interfere with the pipe, but it would probably increase, I believe it would increase the flow of water, the runoff into the area that the pipe has to handle.
Right.
I can't imagine having a retention pond or on the roadside way up, having a pond up to 3 or 4 feet deep. I think the plan showed to try to put a swale to get the water to flow that way. And I can't imagine that because that's more upland graded up. Whereas over here, there's quite a slope coming down. But that's my comment, really.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. McGaldy. Stephanie, do we have anyone else?
I don't see any hands raised. There is another question. Molly Mills asks, will the existing structure on lot A, oh, that's already been answered. I'm sorry. Todd answered that one already. And I don't see any other hands raised.
I will throw out there that if the board would like, we could put some roof drain infiltration in it, like a couple of the house corners to try and put some additional water into the ground. Our drainage calcs don't account for that. But, so if we did it, it would just reduce the post volume, but I wouldn't necessarily want to change the calcs to, in case these things ever fail at some point in the future, I want to make sure that what we've got does work. But if the board would like it, we could probably do something like that. I just have to stay 25 feet away from the septic system with those trenches.
Yeah, go ahead, Mas.
So is this question to Stephanie? Do we need a drainage peer review of this design to see that?
It
Because
doesn't,
that will be the best way to make sure that the design of the drainage for this lot, and this house, are correct based on all the conditions.
yeah, the board could require that. Because it's just a 2-lot subdivision, it's not subject to the stormwater management standards.
But we have a situation.
I mean, it's up to the board. If the board wants to have the drainage reviewed, we can do that.
Yeah, because Mr. Pilling is giving us a table, and I don't know how that was calculated and how all the details are behind that calculation. And we usually, for drainage, we ask for peer review to make sure that that everything is according to what it needs to be.
Yeah, so Amos, it is standard practice that when a project is subject to the stormwater management guidelines, that we do have peer reviewed.
But this is not. So I mean, if there were certainly if there was some suggestion that these pipes on the property were going to interfere in some fashion, I might suggest that I agree with you, Amos. Given what I'm hearing, I personally, I think that Mr. Pilling's suggestion of adding some additional roof drains makes some sense. And I mean, I'd like to see, it sounds like, there's some additional information that needs to go on these plans anyway. And, we have to see the environmental impact report as well. I think that should, give him enough time to add that, engineer it, and hopefully that'll address Mr. McGaldy's concerns and ours and yours.
Well, if you are going to put a house, you're going to move some of the ground and the dirt and put foundations and have drainage from the roof and everything else. It does change what currently is, and it might be okay for this lot, but there is a matter here that is highlighting a problem, a potential problem. So it's a concern that we should consider.
All right. Any final thoughts from you, Deb?
No, I think that I am with you, Bob. I guess I'd want to just have a better understanding of, whether that pipe is going to, or the creation of this property is going to impart any extra water burden onto the adjacent site, and if there are other ways to mitigate it, as you mentioned, like roof drains and things like that.
Yeah, I agree with it.
Okay. Mr. Pilling, how much time do you think you need to present this new information?
Well, my end of it will be very quick. I only need like a day or two, but the question on the frontage, I'm assuming we got to talk to the zoning enforcement officer on. I don't know. That may take a little longer to get an answer, but for me to add in roof drains and a tree line and the abutters across the street and make this a 30-foot easement, that's all easy enough to do. Say a couple days would probably be enough.
Okay. And that's going to include the environmental impact report as well?
Like I say, I already had it done. I just forgot to upload it. So
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. So do you want to go out? Is next meeting too soon, or do you think? Because I'd like to also hear from the fire department, Stephanie.
We will ask them again to comment
Okay.
so when would I need revised plans in to be on for the 22nd? Would it be by Thursday?
by next Monday.
Oh, okay. So
Be-
yeah,
before
for
the
my
meeting.
end, yeah, for my end, that's fine. But what I'd say is if we don't have an answer from the fire department or the, is it zoning that we want to talk to, Stephanie, or is it just like, you know, a read through and try and figure this out? I don't know.
Well,
what-
I wanted to kind of hear from the board and see if they had any strong, but yes, I'll talk to Kevin Griner, who as the building inspector is the zoning enforcement officer and
All right, so I say May
what he
22nd would be
says.
fine.
Okay.
I'll make,
Deb, you may have
I'll make-
read my mind. I was just going to ask for a motion to continue.
I will make a motion to continue to the May 22nd meeting.
Kevin second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Motion to continue. Kedem,
aye.
Balsaric,
Aye.
Stetson is an aye. We will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, now the next matter is 20 South Street. It's an architectural review. Stephanie, I've been recusing myself on this one because of my relationship with an abutter. I don't know
Right.
what we should do here. I mean,
So
if we
let me,
have
first
two
let
members,
me,
is that sufficient?
I'm sorry,
Well,
I mean,
Two
It's-
members, it's not.
so the board needs to approve the plans and that requires a vote. And a vote to pass requires a majority of vote. I mean, a majority of the quorum.
Right.
So you, and
So
if
we
you
need to
recuse
continue?
yourself, there's no quorum,
then there's no quorum.
right? I know Mr. Humphrey is very anxious to get moving, but I don't,
Well, and we only found out about two of the members not being here tonight at the last minute. One of which was an emergency situation, Mr. Humphrey. So, you know, we apologize. I don't think there's too much we can do about it at this point. We're just gonna, I think, have to put it on for May 22nd. Is that right, Stephanie?
I was supposed to be on the meeting 2 weeks ago. That's putting me out a month.
There's
can't
really
speak
not
to that.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not really anything that,
There's
The
nothing
board-
we can do about it.
yeah. I would like to
The only
just
thing we-
remind,
The only thing we need to make sure is that it really goes the next meeting, the 22nd, with some priority. That's it.
I have 6 homes to start, guys. Bob, why can't you can't talk about just looking at these,
I mean,
really has nothing
I
to do.
really wish I could have just, you know, it's just because my, you know, relationship with an abutter, and I've recused myself consistently since I found out about that, you know, being an issue. I wish I could be a part of this. There's nothing I can do about it. And I don't know what happened 2 weeks ago, why you weren't put on then. I have no knowledge of that
The reason
whatsoever.
why I was asked if I would help the planning board out and move to this meeting. And I said, I can help out and I will do that for the planning board. And so I told all my homeowners that I'm moving it out 2 weeks. They all were understanding. I said, look, you're gonna be living in the town and let's work with the town. But now moving it out another 2 weeks is, I don't know what's going to happen. We've got people that are paying mortgages already. They buy the lots off of me. So you have homeowners that are right now paying taxes in the town. I've already closed on 2 of the lots and I can't start their homes now because I was trying to be a nice guy. So I wish there was a way you could work with me here. It's just, we're just, you know.
I mean, Stephanie, is there anything that it does?
Stephanie, you
does
could
this-
sit in as a member for this.
Well, I'm not sure
No,
we can do that,
actually, I cannot.
I
but,
thought you
but
could as the,
just in terms of a question, I mean, is this a public hearing process is public
It is
hearing?
not, it is not a public hearing.
I mean, can any of this be done in less formally? Does it have to be voted and approved on?
It's,
I don't know.
It's, so I pulled up the decision just to check on the language. And this is how it reads: the Easton Planning and Zoning Board shall review all exterior building designs and building placement prior to submission of foundation and building permit applications. No foundation or building permit for any of the dwellings shall be granted until the Planning and Zoning Board have approved all architectural and site plans as pertain to the exterior design and placement of the building.
All right. So it's got to be done at the meeting, Bill. I'm sorry.
I mean, the board, if the board were willing, we could try to schedule a meeting with just this on the agenda.
as
But
you can see how the lots were designed, the houses have already been set up throughout the subdivision where they have to go. The lots are very narrow. The houses they're already on the subdivision plan that we've been voted on. So the houses are all going where they're going. The only changes will be is Frank showed larger houses that I'm building on the footprints on the plan. But yeah, it's, I didn't expect this to be, you know, I told you what I want to create. I want to create a farmhouse style home in the subdivision. You guys liked the idea of what I was saying, and I've created that. And I can't see why we can't just look at this and get this rolling. It's just, I don't know, guys, you gotta, this is
I don't know, Stephanie, see if,
really.
you know, maybe you can do something offline with the rest of the members. Maybe we could set up a sooner meeting or something like that. I don't know if that's a possibility, but see if we can work with Bill to get this done more quickly than the next meeting. That's the best I can do, Bill. I just, my hands are tied.
And you know what the great thing is? Tomorrow, I'm leaving Friday to meet my son down in Florida with his, hopefully asking his girlfriend possibly the question, and we're going down there as a family, so I won't be around next week.
But we can do I mean, it can be a Zoom meeting. Would you not be available for? a Zoom?
I will be available 24/7 for a Zoom meeting.
So I
Absolutely.
think, again, if this is the only topic, yes, Bob, we can reach out to everybody and see if we can't get something scheduled.
Okay. All right.
Guys, can I ask a question? It says, what did you read? If I, just not to hold you guys up, but on the minutes, or I should say, what did it read on permitting process? If
The
you don't-
decision,
Yeah. I
It
don't have
says
it in
no-
front of me.
yeah, it says no foundation or building permit shall be granted until the planning and zoning board have approved the architectural and site plans.
Is it possible, because I don't know what a foundation, so in the town of Easton, when you pull a permit, it's not a single permit. You pull a foundation permit and then you pull a house permit. So what you have to do is get the foundation in. The town of Easton passed this about maybe 20 years ago. They want the foundation in, and they want, which is a good law that they do. They want the foundation in, and then they want an as-built on the foundation to make sure that it's not too close to the property lines, that it's not in the water table, that it's the right elevations as it's engineered. I don't see why I can't go forward with a foundation. What's you're gonna tell me, you don't like the houses that I have sold? I have 8 houses sold, 6 ready to start. You know, when you see the plan, you have the plans, but I'm going with everything that I said I was doing. I'm doing some really nice homes in there. I think you're gonna love it, but is there any way I can get going on the foundations? So if I can get going on the foundations, it's and we can get a Zoom meeting sooner than 2 weeks, it won't hold me up. I can keep working. I can get things going. I've got everything into the building department too. I've got everything in, everything signed off. If you allow me to pull a foundation permit, you don't see the foundation. It's in the ground. It doesn't have any change of look or architectural values or anything.
Stephanie, I would think that that would be up to the zoning enforcement officer's discretion, and I would think that that would be at Mr. Humphrey's own risk, as obviously, like, there's that possibility that if the board did have an objection to the plan, that the footprint maybe would need to be changed, and that would be at Mr. Humphrey's risk. I don't
So
think
I
that
think-
I can recall a situation like this in the past, Stephanie. I don't know if you can.
I did talk to Kevin, to the building inspector. He says he's fine with it. But here's one other thing is you being a business, owning a business and saying what I'm going to do and the plans and all the monies I have vested in here. If I came before you guys with a lousy looking plans and I have 8 houses sold, you're gonna be having a fire auction at my subdivision because I'll be out of business. I do not come before a board with houses, raised ranches, etc. I'm coming with you some very beautiful products that I don't see how you cannot like these plans. I'm that positive that that when you see these, that you're gonna go, boy, this is gonna be some nice looking subdivision with these houses. So I'm going with all high-end stuff on the outside of these things. I'm doing some real fancy garage doors, metal roofs, high roof pitches, oversized windows. I'm doing everything that's board and bat siding. I'm doing some really nice farmhouse design here. So I'm not worried about that part of it. So I have no problem going and putting my foundations in so I can make my customers happy. I have to make you guys happy and the town happy, but I also have to make my customers happy, guys. So if you could work with me on this, I'd really appreciate it.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. We'll get back to you in terms of some kind of a special meeting, and Stephanie will be in touch with you in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Great, guys. Have a good
Bob, do we still need to vote to officially continue it to the next meeting, or because we don't obviously
We don't even
know
have a quorum.
otherwise?
It's not appropriately before us right now.
Okay, so we're just okay.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm being a drama queen here, guys, but
No,
I'm
it's
in a
understandable.
tough place.
It's
I'm in a
understandable.
tough place. All right, thank
Have a
you.
good night.
All right, have a good night.
I hope you understand us too.
I do,
we
of
have a
course I do.
procedure To follow,
I do.
and we are against the wall.
I understand. I understand. I just didn't expect this happening, or, the meeting that I was supposed to be at, I had everything in 2 weeks before I had to have it in, but I know you guys had that special meeting 2 weeks ago, and I was just trying to help you out. I
Thank
should have been on it 2 weeks ago.
All right. We will, we're gonna end it there, and we will see
Okay.
you soon. All
All
right,
right,
thank
very
you.
good. Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is Michelle Way, Elmwood Estates, request to release bond for road completion, CRM development. Do we have someone presenting?
So I will give a quick synopsis. We have Eugenia Sokolova, who is representing the requester. So let me get.
We also should have Jeff Kane, the engineer for the project. And
Okay. You said who?
Jeff Kane.
Kane.
And I think we should have Kevin Kiff.
Yes, he has his hand raised. Okay. Everybody keeps jumping around.
Hello.
Okay, So Stephanie, do you want to introduce this first, or should we turn it
Yeah.
over to the presenters?
I will introduce it and then they can discuss it. So this is a request to determine that the road work has all been completed for Michelle Way, which was part of, it was the roadway associated with Elmwood Estates that was started back in the, I want to say
2016.
2016.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was, actually, yeah, so in any case, the roadway is complete and we've had inspections done. It's a private way and it will remain private in perpetuity. The only outstanding item, so we've had Amory Engineering review it and concurred that the road itself is complete. However, the minimum of 3 trees in the front of the yards, that is a requirement of the subdivision regulations, were not installed. And they weren't installed because the resident, as I understand it, and then we'll, I'll stop speaking, but the residents did not want the trees. So in order to determine that the road's complete and can be closed out, I think the board needs to determine whether, I think what the applicant is requesting is a waiver of the tree requirement.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I'm not sure who wants to take the lead here, but if you could just introduce yourselves and your relationship to the project.
Let me start then. My name is Eugenia, and I represent the developer and the owner of the property. I'm the manager of the company. And when there are 4 houses in Elmwood Estates. And when we were closing on the properties, the residents, the now homeowners, decided to go with their own landscaping. Although all other requirements we did complete, although we faced all the difficulties of COVID that we could possibly endure, like the delays, for example, the gas traps were installed only in autumn of last year, and the delay was caused only because of COVID. But that's a different story. So the homeowners at that point, all the houses were sold. They didn't want to have this, like 3 trees which are 20 feet from the street line, because they have their own landscaping, and they signed the waiver letters because of that. And now we are not the owners of those properties any longer, and we actually cannot force the people to have those trees there, especially if they don't want it. So that's like from me. And Jeff, I would appreciate your opinion on that as well.
Sure. No. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Kane. I'm the engineer for the applicant. As LAL Engineering, we took over the engineering kind of 11th hour on this project. It had dragged out for a while, but Eugenia brought us in just to try to finish everything up, do a little bit more permitting with Concom, and actually get our survey crew to go out and do the final survey for this releasing of the bond. And as Eugenia mentioned, the only item that really seems to be outstanding is the tree issue. This has kind of been going back and forth between the town planner and us, just kind of discussing what we need to do to close this out. And as the engineer looking at this project, when we look at the definitive plans and the decision that was made for the special permit, that's always the the guidelines to go by for construction. So when we open up and look at the signed definitive plans, at the time we saw no tree requirements at all in those plans. There was no trees shown. There was no trees mentioned in the special requirements either of the special permits. We didn't think there was any landscaping whatsoever involved in this. We know that during the special hearing process, that's when the deliberations occur between the owner, the board, the public, and that final hash out is what's shown in the definitive plans. And since nothing was shown there, we weren't expecting any trees to go in. When we were told about those, that's when Eugenia went to the owners and said, do you really want these? And Eugenia did receive letters from the owners that we forwarded on to the board saying, we're really not looking for trees to be forced on us at this point. We'd like to just go forward with our own landscaping. And again, so if we look at what was required in the definitive plans that show no trees and the request by the owners to have no trees, we're hoping that the board can just move forward now with just what's been done out there. As a residential compound, we do meet the requirements shown in the zoning and the planning as far as perimeter tree coverage and indigenous trees that are already there. It's just between lot trees, which I'll be honest, I'm not even sure apply to this one. But again, as we mentioned, with nothing shown on the definitive plans for requirements and with the letters from the owners, we're hoping the board can move forward and finish out this release for the bond.
Mr. Keefe, anything to add?
Good evening, Kevin Keefe, counsel for ZRM. And I don't want to belabor the point. I do believe that Eugenia and Jeff have done quite a bit of work to try to comply with the terms of the bond and sort of reached, a dead end, so to speak, with the tree issue, and tried to work with the homeowners to do the appropriate thing. And I don't think, without their consent at this point, I'm not sure what else my clients can do. And I think in all other respects, the roadway is compliant, and the roadway monuments and draining have been added as was requested last year. So I think they've done everything humanly possible to comply here, and we'd be asking to waive that last requirement and release the bond.
I just wanted to add one more thing. When the gas traps were installed during the fall, in order for them to work properly, although it was not required on the bond, so it was our, good faith decision to clean the existing catch basins, which were full of dirt, and it actually took the specialized company almost the whole day to clean the existing catch basins. So they cleaned them, and only after that the gas traps, the gas hoods were installed. Just a small comment that we were trying and still trying to act in very good faith here.
So just, this is before my time, so I'm not familiar with this project, but just to kind of get me up to speed here, where, if the trees are not on the plan or referenced in the special permit decision, where does the requirement come from?
It actually came from the report provided by I think Avery Engineering, or I may mispronounce the name of the company, and what are the requirements for the roads to be completed. And we received it from the planning board. And again, we complied with all the other requirements, including like easements and everything else, except for the trees, because when it came up, the lots were already sold.
Well, but that's a different question. Maybe I could ask Stephanie, where does the tree requirement come from?
So this project began and was permitted before I was the planning director. I think it was actually even before I worked for the town. But it came from the road cost estimate that's put together at the time the project is permitted, and it indicates the various components of the road construction that are required. This was put together by my predecessor, and that's what we've been operating from for the street inspection, is the road cost estimate. And it included the 3 shade trees, which again are part of the subdivision rules and regulations. And Mr. Kane referenced the buffer, the overall requirement for so many trees per acre on the lots, and retaining as much of the existing trees as possible when a subdivision is being created.
How much is the bond? What's the bond amount?
$30,000.
Okay.
So I guess that's kind of the point we were making. So, as I had mentioned, we had come in after like everyone else, this was before my time when this started. And as an engineer that does this for, over 30 years now, we look at the definitive plan, we look at the decision, we see, as a special permit, there may be certain requirements the town has hashed out with the public and with the applicant. There could be, colors or certain materials or things of that nature. But they're always shown on the plan or referenced in the special decision, so we can use that going forward. We don't now go back and look at the original requirements from the town. We look at what was hashed out to end this project with. And those are the defining documents that we use to go forward with construction. So when we look at the definitive plans, and we see no landscaping, and we look at the definitive plans, we see no sidewalks or no granite curb, we know those aren't going to be required in the construction. So I've never, I guess, done a project that based everything off the one construction estimate. We've never designed or built to something. Now, I understand that document may exist to kind of price things going forward, but obviously the definitive plans and decision are the really controlling documents here. And as Stephanie mentioned, this subdivision does meet the requirements of the buffer landscaping. What we're talking about here is interior between street landscaping, which even looking at the current regulations of 7.31, there's two sections that list tree landscaping. One, I believe it references a standard subdivision, and the other one, 7.32, referenced a residential compound, what this is. So I think there's some confusion here as to what we're really talking about. And since this all happened before we were even involved with this, any of us on this call right now, coupled with the fact that the residents don't want this, I just hope that board can see okay to waive this. Let's move forward. Obviously, something slipped up beforehand, but let's not try to keep this mistake going forward in perpetuity to these folks that live in this compound now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, because it does strike me as odd that we would even be able to enforce something that's not on the plan, under these circumstances. I mean, I don't think we can reasonably expect the engineers to come in and sort of deduce from an estimate that, the road construction should look a certain way and contain certain components. I guess my question is more procedural, though. You're asking for a waiver. If this was in
we're not asking for the
2016.
We're not asking for a waiver. We don't think there's one required.
You're just asking for the release of the bond.
Go ahead.
Right. So I guess that maybe this question is more actually for Stephanie. I mean, procedurally, I'm kind of curious as to how this even works. So, I mean, I guess theoretically, we could just approve the request for the release and, or not. I mean, I want to hear from my, fellow board members in a moment. Or do we actually have to, would we actually have to entertain some modification to the special permit before, potentially approving the release? I guess that's the procedural question I have for you, Stephanie.
Stephanie, I have a
I
question
think-
before that. The approval for this special approval has document, and apparently we don't have a document that talked about the tree. So it has been a mistake, maybe, from the previous board not to include what they discussed on the definite plan. But that's where we are now. And so there is nothing tying us or mandating that this tree needs to be there.
So I think I would concur with that conclusion. I mean, if you're asking them to come back with a modification, but if the plans didn't show these trees being located, then what are they're going to come back with a plan that just shows.
It looks exactly the same as it looks right now.
Well,
I think.
what do you need? You need a motion?
Well, hold on. I'm asked to just sit tight. Let's wait and hear if Deb has any comments as well.
I think that, I mean, it's a little bit of an unusual and tricky situation. And I would say that since it's not indicated specifically in the plan, and as was mentioned, it's a little challenging to go back and try and deduce what the intent was or review what the bylaws were at the moment. I would say that lends some weight to the board having discretion on this matter. At the same time, there must have been a reason as to why the landscaping, the trees were specifically or are being discussed right now. The fact that a butter, and so is the butter here?
No,
Is the abutter has the abutter stated in writing that they do not want these trees added?
Those were part of your package.
Oh, sorry.
They were submitted with the request.
So, yeah, I don't have any additional questions or comments then. I think it seems reasonable, a reasonable request of the board if with the information that's been submitted.
All right. Well, if anyone else has any final words, otherwise I will entertain a motion.
Motion,
there-
motion to approve the release of the bond.
Bob, was there no other members of the public here?
I didn't.
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, sorry. I will second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, motion to approve the release of the bond. Kedem,
Aye.
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is aye as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Good night, all.
Good night. All right, the next item on the agenda is the MBTA multifamily by right zoning district. What do we have there, Stephanie, and what are we able to do with being so shorthanded tonight?
I would suggest that you continue.
Right.
Because
We're
you're going to leave in 30 minutes, if not sooner, right? You have a hard stop at 8:30.
At 8:30, yes, I do. Okay.
And also, I really hate to keep dragging this on, but the Weber Farm Affordable Unit, Mr. Andrunas was, so at the last meeting, the board asked that what they wanted to discuss more, what could be done, and have a better conversation and allow Mr. Andrunas to attend and have an opportunity to speak regarding the unit. He was invited. He is not in attendance. So my understanding of what Peter, as the chair, wanted to do at tonight's meeting, because he was chairing because Greg has been recusing himself from the project, was to discuss the potential for issuing an enforcement, a violation, and then talking about what the board would want to see in that violation notice and then coming out of the notice. So generally, when you issue a violation, you explain to the property owner or offender what is the outcome that the board wants to see.
I have a question, Stephanie. What historically happened when a case like this comes up? End up being a compromise, or you tell them tear everything down and do it according to the plan?
Well, I think those are, so when you say historically,
But there have been cases like this, I'm sure. No? Maybe
not in, no, I've not seen an issue like this before the planning board. where.
So what
Additional
are we able to, were you able to speak with town council about
Yes.
what the
Yep.
options are?
Yes,
What
and
were the
because it's a
recommendations there?
violation, so he determined that it is a violation of the, it's a zoning violation. It's a violation of the permit that was issued because the permit specifically states that the board will review and approve the housing designs. And the board approved a certain design. So the violation is that what's constructed is not consistent with the approved design.
Okay,
And then, so what would the letter look like? It would just identify a number of characteristics that violate the approved design. And then I guess theoretically or conceivably, the owner could come back in and, you know, present some request for a modification if that's the route he or she wanted to go in or something like that.
Right. Okay, so I am looking, I thought I sent the board, in fact, I did, here it is. So let me open up the materials that I sent the board on Sunday. I apologize, they should have been in the binder.
yeah, I'm still on the procedural aspect of this. So what do we have in our hands? You can tell the owner that they cannot release this unit for use until
Yeah.
they comply, basically.
Is this it?
I don't know, what is the
I'm sorry, bear with
enforcement,
me for a minute because I.
what is the enforcement tool that we have in order for them to comply or come back and tell us something?
Again, the tool would
Hey.
be an enforcement, a violation notice. And again, with very specifics on what the board is looking for. So,
Now, does that get, but to Amasa's point, which I think is a good one, does that get recorded? Is there a violation? Like, does that get recorded at the registry? So it's a cloud on title? Is that how that works?
I don't think so. I don't think it gets recorded. One of the things the board can do, again, you could issue fines as part of the violation. You could indicate that if they don't come into, I believe you can indicate if they don't come into compliance and meet the goals that or the changes that the board wants to see, or the correction that the board's wanting to see. You can start issuing fines, and it can be retroactive, I believe, to when the first violation occurred. So you have the ability to assess a $300 fine for a violation, and every day the violation remains in effect, it's an additional $300. I think what the board, frequently that's used as a tool to get to the correction, that, you know, really what you want to see is a correction. So in the documents that I shared with you, the first.
So, when you say that what the board wants to see, isn't that clear that we want to see it what was on the plan that was approved? What else we need to do? Do it according to the plan we approved, or else, whatever that is. I mean, what do we
I
need to
would-
go
I would
and make? We need to go and make lists again and work very hard. They are in violation. They didn't comply. There is a plan. It's very detailed. You even detail one by one all the things that don't match. What else you can do? That's it. We need to hear from them. But I don't know what
I would-
enforcement tool we have.
I would think that the enforcement tool, given that the building inspector is the zoning enforcement officer, would be to make the zoning enforcement officer aware that there is a violation, and the building inspector is within his right to do a cease and desist, and also not grant any other inspections or occupancy permits, which would halt the project from moving forward. That's what I would think would be in our power.
Right, Deb, and in fact, that is what the board would be asking. The board would be asking the zoning enforcement officer to issue the violation because it's a zoning violation. It would come through the zoning enforcement officer. And that's what the discussion is. What does the board feel the violation is? I think it's pretty clear. And then what corrective actions does the board want to see?
I think that typically when there is a violation and plans are not built as specified, the request is that the plans be built as specified. So anything other than that would be, something anything other than that would be a violation. And whether there's a vehicle for the applicant to, petition the board for some relief. I don't even know if that, I don't know if that's something that's even specified in any kind of formal way, but if you don't build it as planned, you generally need to redo it.
Yeah, I agree with I think they are in violation. All the step we need to do now is to let the building inspector halt everything, and they will. I don't need them for that. I don't need any discussion of any type. I have a plan that was approved, and you violated it. You come back to us and tell us what.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, and to Deb's point, I suppose if this is before the occupancy permit, as long as the zoning enforcement officer is aware of it, then, the owner is going to have a significant, motivation or reason to come back to us and either fix the problem or, request for, some kind of reprieve as to some of the conditions. But at this point, we don't need to even go there because we've asked this person to come see us at least on 2 occasions, and he hasn't done so. So I think I agree with both of you. And I mean, I don't think we have to discuss it any further. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I mean, the motion is to inform the building inspector of the violation and request a halt of the occupancy or other permits until the issue is discussed and resolved.
I think it would be a motion to forward this matter to the zoning enforcement officer to issue a notice of violation, identifying the conditions that Stephanie has identified in her memo to us on Sunday night.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. And we don't need to vote on that.
And yes, okay.
All right. So is that your motion, Amas?
Yes, that's the
Sorry.
motion. To forward the list of the detail or the violation to the enforcement officer.
Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Any further discussion?
Just one question. Would you like the order that is being issued to include corrective action?
Well, it's a notice of violation. Isn't that inferred?
Yeah. What detail you will give to some that bluntly disregard everything and build something totally different?
Right.
Well, the corrective action could be, I mean, I think clearly stating could be that you need to
comply with the plan.
comply with the approved, I'm sorry, the approved plan, the plan as approved
Yeah.
by the board.
Sure.
That's right.
All right. On the motion to refer this for a zoning violation, Kedem,
Aye.
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is aye as well. All right. All right, next up is, last item is meeting minutes.
They are good to me.
All right. How about a
Motion
motion?
to approve the minutes. Get them.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kedem,
Aye.
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is aye as well. Motion passes. All right. I'm not going to do the chair report as I'm just a stand-in. So we'll skip to the very last item. Any planning director updates here?
No, I don't really have any updates tonight.
All right. Who's going to take us home tonight?
I just wanted to add that my term is up at the end of this May, and I unfortunately will not be renewing my term. So I will still be at the next meeting, but that I very much have enjoyed and appreciated being on the planning board and working with the different planning directors and the different board members. And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. And Bob, you still have 17 minutes to grab a glass of water.
Get them second.
All right. And any further discussion? Hearing none. Kedem,
Aye.
Balsaric,
Aye.
and Stetson is aye. Have a nice night, everyone. And Deb will
night.
miss you. I'm sorry to hear that
Thank
news.
you. Thank you.
See you next time. Thank you, Easton.
Good night, everybody.